Kevin Hargrove stood frozen beside his airport shuttle, tears streaming down his face as a gleaming black limousine pulled up with the logo Presidential Transportation Services emblazoned on its side. A distinguished black man in a tailored suit stepped out, extending his hand to the Mitchell family. Kevin had refused just 15 minutes earlier. The reality hit like a freight train. This man was Thaddeus Mitchell, the newly appointed CEO of the parent company that owned Kevin's shuttle service. This moment would not only end Kevin's career but transform the Mitchell family's lives in ways they never imagined. Before we dive into how this incredible story unfolded, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Are you Team Justice? Or do you believe in second chances? Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and buckle up, because this story will take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't forget. Let's get into it. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the concrete outside Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Heat shimmered off the pavement in waves as travelers wheeled luggage and families reunited with squeals of joy. It was a typical Thursday in August, the kind of day where the humidity clung to your skin like a second layer of clothing. Thaddeus Mitchell adjusted his navy blazer and checked his phone for the third time in 5 minutes. The confirmation email was right there in bold letters. Premier Airport Shuttle Services. Pick up at Terminal C. Bay number 4. 4:15 p.m. He glanced at his watch. 4:12. Right on time. Beside him, his wife Lorraine dabbed sweat from their 9-year-old daughter's forehead with a tissue. Delilah clutched her favorite doll, a well-loved toy with braided hair and a purple dress that had seen better days. The little girl had been singing Disney songs for the past hour, her energy seemingly endless despite the long flight from Atlanta. Their 14-year-old son Silas sat on top of a suitcase, laptop balanced on his knees, fingers flying across the keyboard. The teenager was already deep into summer homework, preparing for the prestigious STEM Academy He'd be attending in the fall. He'd just won first place at the National Robotics Competition, and the acceptance letter from the school had arrived 2 weeks ago. His parents couldn't have been prouder. Thaddeus looked at his family and felt a swell of gratitude. They'd just come from Atlanta, where He'd attended the final board meeting that officially confirmed his appointment as CEO of TransGlobal Aviation Holdings. It was the culmination of 20 years of relentless work, countless sacrifices, and pushing through barriers that many said were impossible to break. He thought back to his childhood in South Side Chicago, where his mother worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and his father drove a city bus for 30 years. They'd never had much, but they gave him something more valuable than money: the belief that education and hard work could change everything. That full scholarship to MIT had been his ticket out, followed by an MBA from Harvard that opened doors he didn't even know existed. Lorraine had her own story of perseverance. Growing up in Houston as the daughter of a postal worker and a school teacher, she'd dreamed of becoming a surgeon since she was Delilah's age. Johns Hopkins Medical School had been brutal, the residency even more so, but now she was one of the top cardiac surgeons in Dallas, saving lives 5 days a week. They'd met at a charity gala 15 years ago. Thaddeus had been giving a speech about aviation industry innovation, and Lorraine had been there representing the hospital. She'd approached him afterward to discuss potential medical transport partnerships, and had been struck by her intelligence, her grace, and the way she laughed with her whole body. 6 months later, He'd proposed on a beach in Maui. Now, standing outside the airport with their 2 children, they were living proof that the American dream wasn't dead. It was just harder to reach for some than for others. "Mommy, I'm thirsty," Delilah whined, tugging on Lorraine's sleeve. "Well, get you water as soon as we're in the shuttle, baby," Lorraine promised, checking the 7 pieces of luggage arranged around them like a fortress. 3 large suitcases, 2 carry-ons, a garment bag, and Silas backpack stuffed with electronics. "Dad, don't forget we have that Zoom meeting with Principal Rodriguez at 7. Silas reminded him without looking up from his screen. I remember, son. Well, be home with plenty of time. Thaddeus scanned the line of vehicles moving through the pickup zone. Taxis, ride shares, hotel shuttles, and private cars created a constant stream of motion. Then he saw it. A white shuttle van with premier airport shuttle services painted in blue letters on the side, heading straight toward their bay. He smiled at Lorraine. Right on time. Well, be home for dinner. The shuttle's engine rumbled as it approached, and Thaddeus stepped forward, confirmation printout in hand, ready to load up and start the 40-minute drive home to Plano. Everything was going according to plan. He had no idea that in the next few minutes, his world would flip upside down. Kevin Hargrove saw them before he even pulled the shuttle to a complete stop. A black family. 4 of them. Fancy clothes. Too much luggage. He felt his jaw tighten as he eased the van toward Bay 4 where they were waiting. Kevin was 38 years old, had been driving shuttles for 3 years, and had developed certain opinions about certain types of passengers. Had never say it out loud at work, of course. That would be stupid. But in his mind, he knew what he preferred. Quiet passengers who didn't complain, didn't ask for special treatment, and definitely didn't look like they were going to cause problems. The shuttle rolled to a stop directly in front of the Mitchell family. Through the windshield, Kevin watched the man in the expensive suit step forward, waving a piece of paper and smiling like he owned the place. Kevin's hand hovered over the door release button, then moved away. Thaddeus approached the driver's side window with his confirmation printout ready. Hi there. We have a reservation. Mitchell family, 4 passengers. Kevin didn't open his door. He cracked the window, maybe 3 inches, and shook his head. Sorry, we're full. Thaddeus blinked, confused. He leaned slightly to peer through the windshield. The entire shuttle was empty. Not a single passenger. Not one bag in the luggage area visible through the side windows. Completely, totally empty. Excuse me, but the shuttle appears empty. Thaddeus said, keeping his voice even and polite. We have a confirmed reservation. Confirmation number BR-74291. I said we're full. Kevin repeated, his tone flat and final. Waiting for another group. Lorraine, sensing tension, stepped closer with Delilah's hand in hers. Sir, we booked this 3 days ago. We have 4 people, 4 large suitcases, and 2 carry-ons. The confirmation clearly states this shuttle, this time, this location. Kevin's eyes flicked to her, then away. Lady, I don't care what your paper says. I'm telling you we can't take you. Wait for the next one. Silas looked up from his laptop, his young face creasing with concern. He whispered to his mother, Mom, why is he being like this? Delilah pressed closer to Lorraine, sensing something was wrong even if she couldn't articulate what. Thaddeus felt heat rising in his chest, but he kept his composure. Had dealt with this before, too many times before, in boardrooms where he was the only black executive, at conferences where people assumed he was the help instead of the keynote speaker, at restaurants where tables were suddenly unavailable until a white colleague inquired. He knew the signs. He knew the game. But this time was different. This time, his children were watching. Sir, I'm asking you politely one more time. Thaddeus said, his voice steady but firm. We have a confirmed, prepaid reservation. I'd like to speak with your supervisor. You can call whoever you want. Kevin shot back. After you move along, at that exact moment, as if scripted by some cosmic playwright with a cruel sense of timing, a white family emerged from the terminal. A couple in their 40s with 2 young children, dragging suitcases and looking slightly frazzled. The man, wearing cargo shorts and a college football t-shirt, spotted the shuttle and waved. Hey, you taking passengers? The man called out. Kevin's entire demeanor transformed. His face split into a wide smile. He immediately opened his door and hopped out with enthusiasm that hadn't been there 30 seconds ago. "Good afternoon, folks. Need a ride?" Kevin said warmly. The white man, who Thaddeus would later learn was named Patterson, nodded. "Yes. We're heading to Frisco. Can you fit us?" "Absolutely. Let me help you with those bags." Kevin moved to the back of the shuttle, popped open the luggage compartment, and began loading the Patterson family's suitcases with care and efficiency. He chatted pleasantly about the traffic, made a joke about the heat, asked the children if they'd had fun on their trip. Thaddeus stood exactly 10 feet away, watching this performance with mounting disbelief. His confirmation printout crumpled slightly in his tightening grip. Lorraine's hand found his. She squeezed hard. "Thad, this is wrong," she whispered. "I know," he replied quietly. When Kevin finished loading the bags, Thaddeus stepped directly into his path. Their eyes met. Thaddeus kept his voice calm, professional, the voice he used in boardrooms when dealing with difficult stakeholders. "Excuse me, driver. You just told us the shuttle was full. Now you're loading another family who doesn't even have a reservation." Kevin didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "They called ahead. We have written confirmation. We paid in advance. This is discrimination." Kevin's face flushed red. "You calling me racist? I'm doing my job. Now move along before I call security." Mr. Patterson, standing by the shuttle door with his family, shifted uncomfortably. "Is there a problem here?" "No problem, sir," Kevin said quickly. "Just some folks who didn't book properly." "That's a lie," Thaddeus said, louder now, holding up his phone with the email displayed clearly. "I have the confirmation right here. Time-stamped. Paid in full. I don't got time for this," Kevin snapped. "You want a ride? Call another company." He climbed back into the driver's seat. The Patterson family filed into the shuttle, the children taking window seats, the parents settling in with relieved sighs. Through the windows, Thaddeus could see Mrs. Patterson whisper something to her husband, her face troubled, but they stayed seated. The shuttle door closed with a hydraulic hiss, the engine revved, and Kevin Hargrove drove away, leaving the Mitchell family standing in the sweltering heat, surrounded by their luggage. For a moment, nobody spoke. The sound of jet engines overhead and distant car horns filled the silence. Then, Delilah's small voice broke through. "Daddy, why didn't he let us on the bus?" Thaddeus knelt down, eye level with his daughter. He put his hands on her small shoulders and looked into her confused, hurt eyes. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people make wrong choices because of how we look. But we're going to be okay." "But that's not fair," she said, her voice wobbling. "No, baby, it's not fair at all." Standing back up, Thaddeus looked at Lorraine. She had tears in her eyes. Tears of rage more than sadness. Silas had abandoned his laptop and was already recording notes on his phone, documenting everything. The time, the shuttle number, the driver's name visible on the placard attached to the sun visor. The American dream felt very far away right now. Thaddeus pulled out his phone and dialed the customer service number listed on his confirmation email. The line rang twice before an automated system answered. "Thank you for calling Premier Airport Shuttle Services. Your call is important to us. Please hold for the next available representative." Generic elevator music played. 2 minutes passed. Then 5. Then 10. Lorraine tried to keep Delilah distracted, pointing out interesting airplanes landing in the distance, but the little girl was wilting in the heat. Silas had retreated back to sitting on the suitcase, but his laptop remained closed. He was watching his father with an expression that broke Thaddeus' heart. A young man learning in real time that the world wasn't as fair as had been taught. Finally, a voice clicked on. "Premier Airport Shuttle Services, this is Brenda speaking." How may I help you? Thaddeus kept his voice measured and professional. Yes, my name is Thaddeus Mitchell. I had a confirmed reservation for pickup at 4:15 p.m. at DFW Terminal C. Your driver refused service, then immediately picked up another family who didn't have a reservation. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Can you provide your confirmation number? BR-74291. The driver's name was Kevin Hargrove, vehicle number 327. The sound of keyboard typing came through the line. Let me check. Yes, I see your reservation here in the system. A pause. But according to our records, the driver marked you as a no-show. Thaddeus felt his blood pressure spike. A no-show? We were standing right there. He looked directly at us and refused service. Then he took another family right in front of us. Sir, I understand you're upset, but I can only go by what's documented in our system. If you'd like, I can schedule another pickup, but the next available shuttle won't arrive for approximately 1 hour. An hour? It's 95 degrees out here. We have 2 young children. This is completely unacceptable. I want to speak to a manager immediately. Brenda's voice remained robotically pleasant. All our managers are currently in meetings. I can have someone call you back within 24 to 48 hours. That's not good enough. This is clear discrimination, and I will be filing a formal complaint with your company and possibly pursuing legal action. You're certainly welcome to do that, sir. You can find our complaint form on our website. Is there anything else I can help you with today? The absurdity of the question nearly made Thaddeus laugh. No, Brenda. There's nothing else. He ended the call and looked at his family. Lorraine was already on her phone, pulling up the Uber app. She tapped through several screens, then frowned. Surge pricing. $53 to Plano. And the closest driver is 22 minutes away. Even then, I don't know if a regular sedan can fit all our luggage. Thaddeus tried Lyft. Similar story. High prices, long wait times, uncertainty about vehicle size. What about a regular taxi? Silas suggested. Could work, but we'd have to call and request a larger vehicle, which means probably another 30 to 40-minute wait, and the cost would be over $80. They stood there, a successful surgeon and a soon-to-be Fortune 500 CEO, unable to get a simple ride home from the airport. The irony wasn't lost on Thaddeus. A Latino family walked past, noticed them standing with all their luggage, and the grandmother said something in Spanish. Her daughter translated, "She's asking if you need help." "We're okay, thank you," Lorraine replied with a tired smile. "What happened?" the younger woman asked with genuine concern. Lorraine explained briefly. The woman's face darkened with anger. "That's terrible. I'm so sorry. We've dealt with things like that too." They commiserated for a moment before the family had to catch their own ride. The small gesture of solidarity helped, but it didn't solve the problem. An elderly white woman pulling a small suitcase paused as she passed. She had kind eyes magnified by thick glasses. "Excuse me. Are you folks all right? You look stranded." Thaddeus gave her a condensed version of events. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh my goodness, that's awful. That driver should be ashamed of himself. Do you need me to call someone for you?" "We're working on it. But thank you for asking," Thaddeus said, genuinely touched by her concern. After she left, Delilah tugged on Thaddeus' sleeve. "Daddy, can we just go inside where it's cold?" He looked at their mountain of luggage, then at the terminal doors. Going back inside meant hauling everything through security screening again, dealing with crowds, and they'd still be stuck with the same transportation problem. "Sweetheart, we need to stay here so our ride can find us. But I'm hot and thirsty and tired," she whimpered, and he could see tears forming in her eyes. Lorraine dug through her purse and found a pack of fruit snacks. "Here, baby. Eat these, and it'll help a little." Thaddeus made a decision. He scrolled through his phone contacts and found Estelle Brooks, his executive assistant who had been helping coordinate his transition into the CEO role. He hesitated. He didn't want to appear weak or unable to handle a simple situation, but his daughter was suffering, his son was watching him fail to protect his family, and his wife was trying to hold it together despite being just as angry and hurt as he was. He pressed call. Estelle answered on the second ring. Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, is everything all right? Estelle, I need your help with something. He explained the situation, keeping his voice low so Delilah wouldn't hear all the details again. When he finished, there was a moment of shocked silence. Then Estelle's voice came back, tight with controlled fury. Mr. Mitchell, I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family. That's absolutely disgusting. Let me make some calls. Give me 5 minutes. I appreciate it, Estelle. We need to get home. You'll be home soon, sir. I promise. While they waited, Thaddeus sat down on one of the larger suitcases and pulled Delilah onto his lap. She rested her head against his chest, and he could feel her little heart beating fast from heat and stress. Did I tell you about when your grandpa and I used to take the bus in Chicago? He asked softly. She shook her head. This was back when I was about your age. We didn't have a car, so we took the city bus everywhere. And sometimes, the bus driver would drive right past us without stopping. Your grandpa would have to wave his arms and shout just to get them to stop. And you know what he told me? What? He said that some people judge a book by its cover without ever reading a single page. They miss out on all the good stories that way. That driver today, he judged us without knowing anything about us. He doesn't know that your mommy saves people's lives. He doesn't know that your brother is going to change the world with his inventions someday. He doesn't know that you're going to grow up to be anything you want to be. He just saw our skin and made up his mind. That's stupid, Delilah said, with the blunt honesty of childhood. Yes, baby girl, it is. Thaddeus' phone rang. Estelle, Mr. Mitchell, I've arranged something for you. A car will be there in 8 minutes. Black Limousine, Presidential Transportation Services. The driver's name is Calvin Montgomery, has personally handling this. Estelle, that sounds very expensive. A regular sedan would have been perfectly fine. There was something in Estelle's voice, something he couldn't quite identify. Sir, trust me on this one. This is appropriate. You'll understand when the car arrives. Before he could ask what she meant, she continued, Also, I've forwarded all the details of this incident to our legal department and to HR. They'll be looking into the corporate structure of Premier Airport Shuttle services first thing tomorrow morning. Estelle, you didn't have to do that. Yes, sir, I did. See you Monday morning. She hung up. Thaddeus looked at Lorraine. A car's coming. 8 minutes. Thank God, she breathed. Silas asked, What kind of car? Apparently a limousine. A limo? Dad, that's going to cost a fortune. Right now, son, I don't care. I just want to get you all home. They gathered their belongings and moved slightly away from the main flow of traffic to wait. 7 minutes passed. Then 8. Then, precisely on time, a sleek black limousine glided toward them like something out of a movie. The vehicle was immaculate. The paint reflected the afternoon sun like a mirror. Gold lettering on the side read Presidential Transportation Services with an elegant logo. The license plate frame bore the words, Executive Transport Excellence. The limo pulled to a smooth stop directly in front of them. The rear passenger door and the driver's door opened simultaneously. A black man, in his early 50s, stepped out, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, with a crisp white shirt and black tie. His silver-gray hair was trimmed close, his shoes polished to a shine. He moved with practiced grace and an air of quiet dignity. Good afternoon, he said, his voice warm and cultured. Mitchell family. Thaddeus, still processing the sight of this magnificent vehicle, nodded. Yes, that's us. The driver extended his hand. My name is Calvin Montgomery. It's my sincere honor to serve you today. They shook hands, Calvin's grip firm and confident. Then Calvin turned to Lorraine and gave a small, respectful bow. Mom. To Silas. Young man. To Delilah. And this must be the princess I was told about. Delilah giggled, her earlier distress momentarily forgotten. Please, allow me to handle your luggage, Calvin said, already moving toward their pile of bags. That's a lot of luggage for one person, Thaddeus started to say. But Calvin was already efficiently loading bags into the trunk with the skill of someone who'd been doing this for decades. Within 3 minutes, every piece of luggage was securely stored. Calvin then opened the rear passenger door with a flourish. Please, make yourselves comfortable. The interior of the limousine was like stepping into a luxury hotel room. Butter-soft leather seats, in a horseshoe configuration. Ambient lighting that shifted through subtle shades of blue and purple. A small refrigerator stocked with bottled water and soft drinks. A tray of fresh fruit. And in a small vase bolted to the console, a single white rose. Delilah's mouth fell open. Mommy, this is like a princess car. Silas, trying to maintain teenage coolness, couldn't hide his amazement. This is incredible. They settled into the seats. Calvin waited until everyone was comfortable before gently closing the door. Moments later, he was in the driver's seat, adjusting mirrors, checking the GPS. His voice came through a speaker system, clear and pleasant. We'll be heading to Plano, Willow Bend area. Approximately 40 to 45 minutes depending on traffic. Please help yourselves to the refreshments. If you need anything at all, just press the call button on the console. The limousine pulled away from the curb as smoothly as it had arrived. Thaddeus watched through the tinted windows as the airport terminal grew smaller behind them. And somewhere in that same terminal parking area, Kevin Hargrove was finishing his shift, completely unaware that his life was about to implode. The limousine glided onto the highway, and for the first few minutes, the Mitchell family sat in stunned silence, processing the dramatic shift from humiliation to luxury in the span of 20 minutes. Delilah was the first to break the quiet. She grabbed a bottle of water from the mini fridge, took a long drink, and sighed with relief. Daddy, why didn't the other driver have this stuff? Different companies have different standards, sweetheart, Thaddeus replied carefully. Lorraine, ever curious and direct, leaned forward slightly and spoke toward the intercom. Excuse me, Calvin, may I ask how this was arranged? This seems very extravagant for a last-minute booking. Calvin's voice came back immediately. Mom, I received a call from Executive Services at TransGlobal Aviation Holdings about an hour ago. They said this was for their new CEO and his family. Priority 1 service, no questions asked. Thaddeus sat up straighter. TransGlobal arranged this? But how did they know what happened? Your assistant, Miss Estelle Brooks, contacted our dispatch. She explained the situation with the shuttle service and said she needed our absolute best for you. Our general manager, Mr. Harrison Wade, personally assigned me to this pickup. When we heard what happened with that other company, Calvin paused, choosing his words carefully. Let's just say Mr. Wade made this his personal priority. Lorraine looked at her husband. Thad, your assistant went to TransGlobal? Why would the company get involved in something like this? Thaddeus was beginning to piece it together, but he needed more information. Calvin, I have to ask. Does Presidential Transportation Services know which shuttle company refused us service? Yes, sir. Premier Airport Shuttle Services. Another pause. Mr. Mitchell, there's something you should know. Something Mr. Wade specifically asked me to mention if you inquired. Go ahead, please. Premier Airport Shuttle, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Regional Transit Group. And Regional Transit Group was acquired by TransGlobal Aviation Holdings about 6 months ago. The acquisition paperwork finalized in February. As of your official start date, which I believe is Monday, you're technically the head of the entire corporate family, which means Calvin let the implication hang in the air, which means that driver works for me. Thaddeus finished quietly. Indirectly, yes, sir. Lorraine's hand found Thaddeus and squeezed. Oh my God, Thad. Silas, who had been listening intently, leaned forward. Wait, Dad, you mean the guy who just discriminated against us? Works for your company. Apparently so, son. I had no idea TransGlobal even owned a ground transportation division. That acquisition must have happened before I was brought onto the executive team for the CEO transition. Delilah, not fully understanding the adult conversation, asked Calvin. Mr. Calvin, do you have kids? Calvin's voice warmed. I do, sweetheart. A daughter just about your age. Her name is Violet. She's 9. Loves ballet and reading. And Shed, probably really like your doll. Tell her she has a really cool daddy. Delilah announced with the certainty of a child who has decided someone is good. Thank you, young lady. Calvin's voice was thick with emotion. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week. Calvin, Thaddeus said, if I may speak freely as well, what's your take on what happened today? You've been in this industry for a while, I assume. 15 years with Presidential, sir. Another 10 before that with various car services. And in all that time, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. What happened to you today is the ugly. It's shameful. We pride ourselves on treating every single passenger with respect and dignity, regardless of who they are, what they look like, or where they're going. That man, Kevin Hargrove, he's given our entire industry a black eye. No pun intended. Do you know him? Have you encountered him before? Not personally, but drivers talk. Word gets around. Some drivers have good reputations, some don't. I've heard things about Premier's management that... Calvin stopped himself. I probably shouldn't speak out of turn about another company. Please, I'd like to hear it. Well, sir, the word among drivers is that Premier has had turnover problems. High stress, low pay, not much training or oversight. When you don't invest in your people, don't set clear standards, and don't hold them accountable, well, you end up with situations like what you experienced. Thaddeus absorbed this. His mind was already working through the implications, the actions head need to take. But first, he needed to focus on his family. Silas, he said, turning to his son, I saw you taking notes earlier. Do you still have all that information? Silas pulled out his phone. Every detail, Dad. Timestamps, shuttle number 327, driver name from his ID badge that was visible through the window. I even got a photo of the shuttle pulling away with the other family inside and us still standing there with our bags, and I recorded part of the conversation. That's good thinking. Very good thinking. I'm proud of you for keeping your head. I remembered what you always said, document everything. Evidence matters. It does, son, it really does. Now here's where I want to ask you something, because this story is about to take some serious turns. Comment number 1. If you think Thaddeus should use his power as CEO to fire Kevin immediately. Or comment number 2 if you think there should be a formal investigation first. Hit that like button if you're as fired up about this injustice as I am, and make sure you're subscribed, because you won't want to miss what happens when Kevin discovers who he just messed with. What do you think Kevin's going to do when reality hits him? Let's find out. Thaddeus pulled out his own phone and opened his email. His fingers moved quickly across the screen as he composed a message to Estelle. Estelle, please schedule a meeting first thing Monday morning. Attendees. Head of HR. General Counsel, and the Regional Manager of Regional Transit Group. Subject: urgent personnel and policy matter requiring immediate executive attention. Also, please have legal pull all documentation related to Premier Airport shuttle services, including driver employment files, training records, customer complaint history, and any pending litigation. You'll need this information before the meeting. Thank you for your help today. TM. He hit send. Lorraine watched him work, knowing exactly what was going through his mind. 20 years of marriage taught you to read your spouse's thoughts. You're not just going to fire him, are you? You're going to make changes to the whole system. One bad driver is a problem. But if that one bad driver has been allowed to discriminate repeatedly without consequences, that's a systemic failure. And I want lead a company that allows that kind of failure. Dad, Silas said hesitantly, are you doing this because of what happened to us, or would you do this anyway? It was a profound question from a 14-year-old. Thaddeus considered it seriously. Both. Son. Yes. I'm angry about what happened to our family. But even if this had happened to someone else, even if I'd just heard about it, I'd still need to address it. Because now I know it's happening under my watch, and I have the power to stop it. With power comes responsibility. That's Spider-Man. Delilah piped up. Despite everything, they laughed. The tension broke slightly. The limousine exited the highway and entered the tree-lined streets of Plano. They passed familiar landmarks. The shopping center where Lorraine bought groceries. The park where Delilah took ballet lessons. Silas School standing solid and brick behind iron gates. Almost home, Calvin announced. 10 minutes. Thaddeus looked out the window at the upper-middle-class neighborhood they'd worked so hard to afford. Nice houses with 2-car garages, manicured lawns, basketball hoops in driveways. This was supposed to be the safe space, the reward for all the hard work and perseverance. But today had been a reminder that success doesn't insulate you from hatred, that you can have all the money and degrees and accomplishments in the world, and some people will still only see your skin color. The limousine turned onto their street, Willow Creek Drive, and slowed to a stop in front of a beautiful 2-story home with white siding and dark green shutters. Home. Calvin was out and opening their door before Thaddeus could even unbuckle. He helped Lorraine out first, then the children, then Thaddeus. Then he efficiently unloaded every single piece of luggage and arranged it neatly on the driveway. Thaddeus reached for his wallet, but Calvin held up a hand. Already taken care of, sir, including gratuity. But I appreciate the thought. Calvin, thank you. Thank you for your professionalism, your kindness, and for treating my family with the respect we should have received from the start. Calvin extended his hand one more time. Mr. Mitchell, it was genuinely my honor. And, sir, if I may say one more thing, of course, what you're about to do on Monday, whatever actions you're planning to take, I hope you follow through. Because there are too many Kevin Hargroves in this world, and not nearly enough people in positions of power willing to hold them accountable. Good luck, sir. They shook hands firmly. Calvin tipped his cap to Lorraine, winked at Delilah, and gave Silas a respectful nod. Then he returned to the limousine and drove away, the vehicle disappearing around the corner like a dream that had momentarily become real. The family stood in their driveway, surrounded by luggage, exhausted and emotionally drained. Let's go inside, Lorraine said softly. Let's have dinner together. Let's rest. Tomorrow's a new day. They carried their bags into the house, and for the rest of the evening, they tried to return to normal. Lorraine made spaghetti. Thaddeus helped Silas set up his laptop for the school Zoom meeting. Delilah played with her doll and told it stories about riding in a princess car. But normal felt different now. The safety of home had been preceded by humiliation. The comfort of success had been tainted by discrimination, and Thaddeus knew that when Monday morning came, he had a responsibility not just to his family, but to every person who'd ever been judged unfairly. He barely slept that night. Thaddeus' alarm went off at 5 a.m. Monday morning. He was already awake, had been since 4:30, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling while mentally rehearsing the day ahead. This was supposed to be a day of celebration, his official first day as CEO of TransGlobal Aviation Holdings. There would be a company-wide announcement, a reception with the board of directors, media interviews, photo opportunities. Had prepared for months, but now his first order of business wouldn't be the celebratory activities. It would be dealing with a discrimination incident that had personally affected his family while simultaneously exposing systemic failures in a subsidiary company. He showered, shaved, and dressed with careful attention. Navy blue suit, crisp white shirt, red tie. The colors weren't accidental, authoritative, clean, powerful. He needed to look the part, especially today. Downstairs, Lorraine was already up, still in her scrubs from an early morning emergency surgery she'd been called in for at 4 a.m. She poured him coffee without asking, added 1 cream, and half a sugar exactly the way he liked it. "You're going to do great today," she said, handing him the mug. "I'm ending someone's career before 9 a.m. You're holding someone accountable for discrimination. There's a difference." The kids came down for breakfast. Silas, in his school uniform, backpack, already loaded with the day's homework. Delilah, in her favorite purple dress, because it was Fancy Monday. Before leaving, Thaddeus knelt down and hugged both children tightly. "I love you both. And I want you to know that what happened Thursday was wrong. But we're going to make sure it doesn't keep happening." "Are you going to fire the mean driver?" Delilah asked. "I'm going to make sure the right thing happens, sweetheart." The drive to downtown Dallas took 35 minutes in early morning traffic. TransGlobal Aviation Holdings occupied floors 32 through 40 of the Emerald Tower, a sleek glass and steel monument to corporate success. Thaddeus parked in his new reserved spot, reserved for CEO. The sign was new, brass letters on dark green. He stared at it for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Then he grabbed his briefcase and headed inside. Estelle met him at the elevator on the 35th floor, which housed the executive suites. She was a petite black woman in her late 40s with impeccable style and an efficiency that bordered on psychic. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell. Welcome to your first official day. Coffee is in your office. The files you requested are on your desk. And your 7 a.m. meeting is set up in Conference Room A. All attendees confirmed." "Thank you, Estelle. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd be fine, but you'd be less organized," she said with a small smile. Then her expression grew serious. "Sir, I took the liberty of reviewing some of the complaint files from Premier Airport Shuttle over the weekend. What I found is disturbing. Show me." She led him to his new office, corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Dallas, a desk that could double as a aircraft carrier, and enough leather furniture to upholster a luxury car dealership. But Thaddeus barely noticed the opulence. His attention went straight to the 3 thick folders on his desk. "The red folder is Kevin Hargrove's complete employment file," Estelle explained. "The blue folder is aggregate customer complaints for Premier Airport Shuttle over the past 2 years. The green folder is pending or settled litigation involving the company." Thaddeus opened the red folder first. Kevin Hargrove's personnel file painted a concerning picture. Hired 3 years ago with minimal background check. Cursory training. 4 separate customer complaints filed about his behavior, 3 of which explicitly mentioned racial discrimination or bias. Each complaint had been marked, resolved with refund, and closed without any disciplinary action. The blue folder was worse. Over the past 2 years, Premier had received 63 complaints related to driver behavior. 22 of those complaints mentioned potential discrimination based on race, ethnicity, or perceived economic status. The company's response in almost every case was the same: offer a refund, apologize, move on. No investigations, no retraining, no terminations. The green folder contained 3 settled lawsuits, all involving allegations of discrimination. All settled out of court with confidentiality agreements. One case was still pending, scheduled for mediation next month. "This is a lawsuit factory," Thaddeus said quietly. "This is a company operating with complete disregard for basic civil rights." "Yes, sir," Estelle agreed. "And as of this morning, it's your company." At precisely 7 a.m., Thaddeus entered conference room A. 3 people were already seated at the long table: Margaret Delacroix from HR, Jerome Wallace from Legal, and Randall Cooper, the regional manager of Regional Transit Group. Margaret was a white woman in her late 50s, gray hair cut in a professional bob, wearing a tailored suit that suggested she'd been in corporate America long enough to know how the game was played. Thaddeus had met her during his transition meetings and found her to be fair-minded and direct. Jerome was an old friend from Harvard Law. A black man about Thaddeus' age who'd climbed the corporate legal ladder through brilliance and an unwillingness to compromise on ethics. Having him in the room made Thaddeus feel less alone. Randall Cooper was a white man in his early 50s, slightly overweight, wearing a polo shirt with the Regional Transit Group logo. He looked nervous, which was appropriate, given the circumstances. "Thank you all for coming in early," Thaddeus began, taking his seat at the head of the table. "I'm going to be direct, because time is valuable, and this situation demands clarity. This past Thursday, my family and I were refused service by one of your drivers, Kevin Hargrove, at DFW Airport. The refusal occurred despite our having a confirmed prepaid reservation. Immediately after refusing us, Mr. Hargrove provided service to another family who did not have a reservation. The difference between our family and the other family was visible and obvious. We are black. They were white." Margaret's face went pale. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm absolutely horrified that this happened to you." "It gets worse," Thaddeus continued. He opened his laptop and connected it to the room's display screen. Silas photos and videos appeared in high resolution. The shuttle with Premier Airport shuttle services clearly visible. Kevin Hargrove's face through the windshield. The timestamp. The Patterson family boarding with their luggage. The Mitchell family standing beside their pile of bags. My 14-year-old son had the presence of mind to document everything. We have clear evidence of what occurred. Randall Cooper looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. "Mr. Mitchell, I don't know what to say. This is completely unacceptable. Randall, I need you to pull Kevin Hargrove's complete file right now. I want to see his hiring records, training documentation, performance reviews, and any customer feedback." "Yes, sir. Right away." Randall pulled out his phone and started making calls. While he did that, Jerome spoke up. "Thad, I reviewed the complaint files over the weekend. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern. Show them," Thaddeus said. Jerome distributed copies of a summary report head prepared. "In the past 24 months, Premier Airport Shuttle Services has received 22 complaints that specifically referenced potential discrimination. That's almost 1 per month. The company's response has been uniformly inadequate. Issue refunds, apologize, close the case, no driver retraining, no policy enforcement, no accountability." Margaret scanned the report, her expression growing darker with each page. "This is a Title VII nightmare waiting to happen. Actually, based on the pending litigation, it's already happening." Randall returned to the table, his phone still in hand. "I've got someone pulling Hargrove's file now. They'll email it within 10 minutes. He looked at Thaddeus with genuine distress. Sir, I want you to know that I was brought in to manage Regional Transit Group only 4 months ago. The previous leadership had a different philosophy about handling complaints. What philosophy was that? Thaddeus asked. Keep things quiet. Don't make waves. Refund and move on. They believed that any complaint that didn't result in a lawsuit was a complaint successfully handled. That's not a philosophy, Jerome said sharply. That's negligence. An email notification pinged on Randall's laptop. He opened it, scanned quickly, and then projected the contents onto the screen. Kevin Hargrove's file was damning. Hired 3 years ago with a basic commercial driver's license and a cursory background check that revealed 2 minor traffic violations, but nothing disqualifying. His training had consisted of a 3-day orientation covering vehicle operation and customer service basics, with no substantive discussion of anti-discrimination policies. But the real revelation was in the complaint history. 4 formal complaints. 1. 18 months ago, a black passenger reported that Hargrove was rude and dismissive, refused to help with luggage, and made me feel unwelcome. Company response: refunded fare, no action taken against driver. 2. 14 months ago, a Latino family reported that Hargrove looked at us with disgust and acted like we were bothering him. Company response: refunded fare, verbal warning issued to driver. 3. 8 months ago, a South Asian businessman reported that Hargrove questioned whether I actually had a reservation and made me show my confirmation 3 times before agreeing to provide service. Company response: refunded fare, required driver to attend a 1-hour online customer service refresher course. 4. 4 months ago, a black couple reported that Hargrove refused to pick us up initially, then only agreed after we showed him our military IDs, as if we needed to prove we deserved service. Company response: refunded fare, no action taken as driver claimed there was a scheduling confusion. 4 complaints, Thaddeus said slowly. 4 separate incidents where customers felt discriminated against. 4 times your company had a chance to address this problem. And 4 times, you chose not to. Randall looked sick. Sir, I wasn't here for 3 of those. But the 4th one, the military couple, that happened on my watch. I was told by the previous regional manager that it had been handled appropriately. I'm realizing now that I should have dug deeper. Yes, you should have, Thaddeus agreed. But we're here now, and we're going to fix it. Here is what's going to happen. Effective immediately, Kevin Hargrove is suspended without pay pending a formal investigation. Margaret, I want you to personally oversee that investigation. Interview him, review all evidence, and provide me with a recommendation within 72 hours. Jerome, I want you to assess our legal exposure and draft new policies that make our anti-discrimination stance absolutely clear. Randall, I want you to personally interview every single driver in the Premier Fleet within the next 2 weeks. I want to know if there are any other Kevin Hargroves hiding in your ranks. All 3 nodded. Furthermore, Thaddeus continued, I want a comprehensive review of hiring practices, training programs, and complaint response procedures not just for Premier, but for every company under the Regional Transit Group umbrella. This is an opportunity to set a new standard, and we're going to take it. Margaret spoke up. Mr. Mitchell, given that this incident personally affected you and your family, would you prefer that someone else handle the investigation to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest? It was a fair question. Thaddeus considered it. No. I want to be involved because I have first-hand knowledge of what occurred, but I also want outside oversight. Jerome, can we bring in an employment law specialist to review the investigation independently? Absolutely. I know several excellent firms who specialize in workplace discrimination cases. Do it. The meeting continued for another hour, with detailed discussions about implementation, timelines, and resources. By the time they finished, it was almost 9 a.m. Thaddeus had been CEO for 2 hours and had already launched the most significant personnel action of his career. As the others filed out, Jerome hung back. When they were alone, he closed the door. "Thad, are you okay? I mean really okay?" Thaddeus leaned back in his chair and rubbed his face. "My 9-year-old daughter asked me why someone wouldn't let us on a bus because of how we look." How do you answer that question, Jerome? How do you explain to a child that some people are just cruel? You tell her the truth, which I'm sure you did, and then you do exactly what you're doing right now. You use your power to make sure it happens less often. You know this is going to be a story, right? New black CEO's first act is firing a white employee for discrimination. The optics are complicated. The optics are fine, Jerome countered. You're enforcing company policy and civil rights law. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me and my legal team. Thaddeus smiled despite everything. Thanks, brother. Always. After Jerome left, Thaddeus sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes. Through the windows, he could see the Dallas skyline glittering in the morning sun. Somewhere out there, Kevin Hargrove was starting his shift, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. Thaddeus didn't feel victorious. He felt tired, but he also felt certain that this was the right thing to do. He returned to his office, where a stack of messages awaited him. Media interview requests for his first day, congratulations from board members, invitations to industry events, all the trappings of success. But first, he had one more thing to do. He picked up his office phone and dialed. "Mitchell Residence," Lorraine answered. "Hey, it's me. How'd it go?" "The wheels are in motion. Hell be suspended by noon, formally investigated by end of week. And, if the evidence supports what we know, hell be terminated." Lorraine was quiet for a moment. "How do you feel? Like I wish this wasn't necessary? Like I wish people could just treat each other decently? But also like I'm doing what needs to be done." "You are. And I'm proud of you. I love you. Love you too. Now go be a CEO." He hung up, took a deep breath, and turned to face the rest of his first day. At 11:30 a.m., Kevin Hargrove was halfway through his second airport run of the day when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Cooper, Randall, RTG Management. Kevin's stomach clenched. Management never called unless there was a problem. He pulled into a gas station, parked away from the pumps, and answered. "Hello, Kevin. This is Randall Cooper. I need you to return to the office immediately. We have a situation that requires your immediate attention. I'm in the middle of a job. I've got passengers scheduled for pickup at 1 p.m. I'll have dispatch reassign them. This can't wait. Can you tell me what it's about? We'll discuss it when you get here. How soon can you be at headquarters?" Kevin checked his GPS. Downtown Dallas, Regional Transit Group offices. 45 minutes, maybe an hour with traffic. Make it as quick as you safely can. See you soon. The line went dead. Kevin sat in his shuttle, gripping the steering wheel, running through possibilities in his mind. Had he been in an accident he didn't remember? Had someone complained about his driving? Had the company found out about the six-pack head drunk before his shift last week? His mind didn't go to Thursday afternoon with the black family. That incident barely registered in his consciousness as something that could cause trouble. In his view, Head made a judgment call about an overscheduled shuttle and prioritized paying customers who looked reliable. Simple business decision. The drive into downtown Dallas was torturous. Traffic crawled. Kevin's anxiety built with every red light. He tried calling his wife, but she didn't answer. She was probably at her part-time job at the grocery store. Regional Transit Group's offices occupied the 23rd floor of a mid-rise building near the Arts District. Kevin had only been here twice before. once for new employee orientation 3 years ago, and once for a mandatory safety meeting last year. The receptionist directed him to Conference Room C. When he opened the door, he found 2 people waiting. A severe-looking white woman in a business suit, and a black man about his age in an expensive suit. "Mr. Hargrove, please have a seat," the woman said. "I'm Margaret Delacroix from Human Resources, and this is Jerome Wallace from Legal." "Legal?" Kevin's anxiety spiked into fear. "Am I in some kind of trouble?" he asked, trying to sound casual and failing. "We're conducting an investigation into an incident that occurred last Thursday at DFW Airport, Terminal C, approximately 4:15 p.m. Do you recall refusing service to a family of 4? Kevin's mind raced back. Thursday. Terminal C. 4:15. Had done dozens of pickups that day. A family of 4. Wait. The black family. The well-dressed ones Hode claimed they had a reservation but looked like they might cause problems. Had passed on them and picked up the nice white family instead. I had a full schedule that day. If I couldn't accommodate someone, it was because of capacity issues." Margaret opened a laptop and turned it to face him. "Mr. Hargrove, I'm going to show you some video footage. I need you to watch carefully." She pressed play. Kevin watched himself on screen, pulling up to the Mitchell family. Watched himself refuse service through the cracked window. Watched the empty shuttle, every seat visible, mocking his claim of being full. Watched himself light up with a smile when the Patterson family approached. Watched himself load their bags with enthusiasm. Had denied the family before them. The video was damning. Absolutely, completely damning. "Mr. Hargrove," Jerome Wallace said, his voice measured and professional. "We also have audio recording of the interaction, taken by one of the passengers you refused service to. In it, you state the shuttle is full, despite visible evidence to the contrary. Then you immediately provide service to another family. Can you explain the discrepancy?" Kevin's mouth went dry. There was. The system was glitching. "I didn't have accurate information about my schedule. The system logs show you marked the Mitchell family as a no-show," Margaret said. "That's a manual entry. Why would you mark them as a no-show when they were physically present?" "I must have clicked the wrong button. Mr. Hargrove, let me be very direct. The family you refused service to was the Mitchell family. Dr. Lorraine Mitchell, a cardiac surgeon, her husband, Thaddeus Mitchell, and their 2 children, aged 14 and 9. Do you recognize the name Thaddeus Mitchell?" Kevin shook his head, genuinely confused. Jerome leaned forward. "Thaddeus Mitchell is the new CEO of TransGlobal Aviation Holdings, which owns Regional Transit Group, which owns Premier Airport Shuttle Services. In other words, Mr. Hargrove, the man you refused service to last Thursday is now your ultimate boss, and he is an African-American man." The blood drained from Kevin's face. His vision went spotty. He thought he might actually pass out. I didn't know who he was." "That's precisely the problem," Margaret said sharply. "Every customer deserves professional service regardless of who they are. But let me show you something else." She opened a file on her computer. Kevin's employment record appeared on screen, including the complaints section. "You have 4 prior complaints about discriminatory or biased behavior. 4 separate incidents where passengers felt they were treated unfairly. And in each case, the passengers who complained were people of color. Do you see a pattern here, Mr. Hargrove?" Kevin's defenses kicked in. "Those complaints were bogus. People trying to get free rides. You know how some people are." The moment the words left his mouth, he realized his mistake. Jerome's expression hardened. "Some people? What people are you referring to, Mr. Hargrove?" Kevin backpedaled frantically. "I just meant, People who complain a lot. Not any specific. I'm not a racist. Mr. Hargrove, Margaret said, closing her laptop with finality. Based on the video evidence, audio evidence, your prior complaint history, and this interview, we are terminating your employment with Premier Airport Shuttle Services effective immediately. You will be escorted to collect your personal belongings and then escorted from the premises. Kevin shot to his feet. You can't do this! I'll sue! This is wrongful termination. Jerome stood as well, perfectly calm. Mr. Hargrove, Texas is an at-will employment state, which means either party can terminate employment at any time for any legal reason. Discrimination against customers based on race violates both company policy and federal civil rights law. We have documented evidence of your actions. If you choose to pursue legal action, that's your right, but I assure you we will defend our decision vigorously. Furthermore, we will not be providing a reference for future employment. The reality crashed over Kevin like a wave. No job, no income, no reference. In an industry where reputation mattered and background checks were standard, he was finished. Please, Kevin said, his voice cracking. I have a family. I have a mortgage. I need this job. Margaret's expression didn't soften. You should have considered that before you discriminated against a family with 2 young children who just wanted to get home. A security guard appeared at the door. Kevin was escorted down to the shuttle depot, where he collected items from his locker under supervision. A jacket, a spare pair of shoes, a coffee mug that said "World's Best Dad." Some family photos. The other drivers avoided eye contact. Word had already spread. The walk of shame through the depot, past colleagues who'd once greeted him, was excruciating. He was handed a final paycheck covering hours worked through today, minus deductions. Then, he was escorted to his personal vehicle in the parking lot. Kevin sat in his old truck, hands shaking, and tried to call his wife again. This time she answered. Kevin, I thought you were working. Diane, I got fired. Silence. Then, what? What happened? How could he explain? How could he tell her that he'd refused service to a black family and it turned out the man was his new boss? How could he admit that his own prejudice had cost him everything? There was a complaint. They said I discriminated against some passengers. Did you? The question hung in the air. Kevin wanted to deny it. Wanted to claim he was the victim of political correctness, gone mad. But sitting alone in his truck, with his career in ruins and his future uncertain, the lies felt hollow. Yeah, he admitted quietly. Yeah, I guess I did. Diane was silent for a long moment. Kevin, I need to pick up the kids from school. Well, talk when you get home. She hung up. Kevin drove home in a daze. Their modest house in Garland looked the same as always. A bit run down, needing a fresh coat of paint. But home. He went inside, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall. His daughter Kaylee came home from school around 3:30, bouncing through the door with her backpack. Daddy, you're home early. She ran to hug him, and Kevin felt tears prick his eyes. She was 9 years old. Same age as the little girl had left standing in the heat at the airport. Hey, pumpkin. Yeah, I got off early today. Can we go to the park? Not today, sweetie. Daddy's tired. Diane came home an hour later with their son, Ethan, who was 12. She sent both kids to their rooms to do homework, then sat down across from Kevin. Tell me everything. He did. The whole story spilled out. The black family at the airport. His decision to skip them and pick up the white family. The complaint. The investigation. The firing. He left out some of the worst details, but the essential truth was there. When he finished, Diane was quiet for a long time. Kevin, I don't even know what to say. How could you do something like that? I didn't think it was a big deal. I make judgment calls all the time about which passengers to prioritize, based on the color of their skin. That's not. I'm not a racist, Diane. Then what do you call refusing service to a black family and immediately serving a white family? What else could that possibly be? Kevin had no answer. Over the next 3 days, things got worse. Kevin applied to other shuttle services, car services, delivery companies. Every application asked for references and reason for leaving previous employment. He tried to be vague. Position eliminated due to corporate restructuring. But when potential employers called Premier for verification, they were told the truth. Terminated for policy violations related to customer discrimination. No one would hire him. His unemployment claim was denied because he'd been fired for cause. Their savings, already minimal, wouldn't last more than a few weeks. And then Kaylee came home from school crying. Some kids had found out why her dad was fired. In the age of social media and gossip that traveled at light speed, the story had spread. A classmate's parent worked at Regional Transit Group. The details got out. They called you a bad word, Daddy. Kaylee sobbed into his shoulder. They said you hate black people. Do you? Kevin held his daughter and felt shame like he'd never experienced before. No, baby. No, I don't. Daddy made a mistake. A really bad mistake. But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. He thought about his parents, their casual prejudices that had absorbed growing up. He thought about the jokes he laughed at with certain friends. He thought about the assumptions he made when he saw people who didn't look like him. Maybe he was exactly what they said he was. The thought made him sick. On day 4 after his termination, Kevin made a decision. He couldn't change what had done. But maybe he could at least try to apologize. It wouldn't get his job back. It wouldn't undo the harm. But it might be a start. He looked up TransGlobal Aviation Holdings online and found the main number. It took 20 minutes of being transferred through different departments before he finally reached an executive assistant who agreed to pass along a message. I need to speak with Mr. Thaddeus Mitchell. It's personal. Please tell him Kevin Hargrove needs to see him. He didn't expect a response, but an hour later, his phone rang. 3 days after his termination, Kevin drove back to DFW Airport, not to work, but to collect some personal items he'd left behind in his locker. A phone charger, a backup uniform shirt, a book he'd been reading during breaks. He parked in the employee lot, using the access card that would expire at midnight tonight. Walking through the shuttle depot felt surreal. Just a week ago, this had been his daily routine. Now, he was an outsider. The other drivers saw him and looked away. No one said hello. Word had spread about exactly why he'd been fired, and in an industry where customer service was paramount, discrimination was the ultimate unforgivable sin. Kevin quickly gathered his things from the locker and headed back toward the parking lot. But to get there, he had to pass through the main terminal, past the pickup zones where he'd spent countless hours. He walked past Bay 4, the spot where everything had gone wrong. His steps slowed. He stood there for a moment, remembering. And then, like some kind of cosmic joke, he saw them, the Mitchell family, standing in almost the exact same spot, waiting for a ride. Kevin's first instinct was to turn and run, but his feet wouldn't move. He stood frozen, watching from maybe 30 feet away. Thaddeus Mitchell stood with perfect posture in a charcoal gray suit. His wife wore a camel-colored blazer over a black dress. The teenagers were on his phone, and the little girl was spinning in circles, making her skirt flare out. They looked happy, normal, like a family waiting for a ride home. And then the limousine arrived. The same sleek black vehicle from before, Presidential Transportation Services gleaming on its side. Calvin Montgomery stepped out, moving with practiced grace to open the door for them. The little girl waved at Calvin, clearly recognizing him. Mr. Calvin. Hello, Miss Delilah. Back from your trip. We went to see Grandma. Calvin loaded their luggage with care, chatting easily with the family. They treated him with warmth and respect. He treated them the same way. It was such a simple interaction, but it highlighted everything Kevin had failed to do. Thaddeus Mitchell glanced up and his eyes met Kevin's across the distance. For several seconds, they just looked at each other. Kevin saw no anger in the man's face, no vindictiveness, just a steady, evaluating gaze. Then Thaddeus nodded once, just once, an acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Kevin understood that. But recognition, a moment of shared humanity, despite everything. The family got into the limousine. The door closed. Calvin returned to the driver's seat, and the vehicle pulled away smoothly, merging into traffic. Kevin stood there, as people flowed around him. Travelers with suitcases, families reuniting, business travelers checking their phones. Life going on as normal for everyone except him. His vision blurred. Tears came, hot and unwelcome. He tried to hold them back, but they kept coming. His chest heaved with sobs he couldn't control. A security guard approached, concerned. "Sir, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" Kevin shook his head, unable to speak. He waved the guard off and stumbled toward the parking garage. In his truck, with the doors locked and the windows up, Kevin let himself break down completely. He cried for his lost job, for his damaged reputation, for his daughter's tears. But most of all, he cried because Head finally understood something that should have been obvious all along. The Mitchell family hadn't done anything to him. They were just trying to get home, and Head denied them basic human dignity because of the color of their skin. Head made their children watch as their parents were humiliated. Head forced them to explain discrimination to a 9-year-old who just wanted to ride in a shuttle. And when given the exact same choice moments later, Head served the white family with a smile. There was no justifying it, no explaining it away. It was wrong, and Head done it. And now he had to live with the consequences. Kevin started his truck and drove home. When he got there, Diane was making dinner. The kids were doing homework at the kitchen table. He stood in the doorway and said, "I saw them today. The family from the airport. I saw what I did to them." Diane turned from the stove. And, I want to make it right. I don't know how, but I want to try." She studied his face for a long moment. "Then you need to actually change, Kevin. Not just apologize to make yourself feel better. Actually, become a better person." "I don't know how to do that." "Then figure it out. Because I'm not raising our children around hate." That night, Kevin made a phone call to a therapist whose number Head found online. The first available appointment was 2 weeks out, but he took it. He started volunteering at a community center in South Dallas, helping with their food bank. The work was humbling. Most of the people he served were Black or Latino, and many of them had stories about discrimination they'd faced. Stories that sounded a lot like what had done to the Mitchell family. He listened, really listened, and slowly, painfully, began to understand. 3 weeks after his termination, Kevin received a call from an assistant at TransGlobal Aviation Holdings. Mr. Mitchell would see him. Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. Kevin almost canceled 3 times. What could he possibly say? But in the end, he went. Friday afternoon at 3:45 p.m., Kevin Hargrove stood outside the Emerald Tower in downtown Dallas, staring up at 40 floors of glass and steel. TransGlobal Aviation Holdings occupied the top floors, including the executive suite, where Thaddeus Mitchell's office was located. Kevin had lost 15 pounds in the past 3 weeks. His clothes hung loose. He hadn't slept well. The stress had aged him. He checked in with building security, received a visitor badge, and rode the elevator to the 35th floor. His hands shook. The reception area was elegant. Modern furniture, abstract art on the walls, a waterfall feature that created soothing white noise. A receptionist directed him to wait. At precisely 4 p.m., a woman in her 40s approached. "Mr. Hargrove? I'm Estelle Brooks, Mr. Mitchell's assistant. Hell, see you now." She led him down a hallway to a corner office. Through glass walls, Kevin could see Thaddeus Mitchell at his desk, reviewing documents. Estelle knocked gently, then opened the door. "Mr. Mitchell, your 4 o'clock is here." Thaddeus looked up, and Kevin met his eyes, for the second time. Up close, without the filter of windshield glass or airport distance, Kevin could see the intelligence in this man's face, the strength, the weariness of someone who'd fought battles Kevin couldn't imagine. "Thank you, Estelle. Please hold my calls." She left, closing the door behind her. "Mr. Hargrove, please sit down." Kevin sat in one of the leather chairs across from the massive desk. The office felt like a different universe from the shuttle depot where Head spent his days. "Thank you for seeing me, sir. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I don't deserve this meeting." Thaddeus leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Then why are you here?" "To apologize. To tell you I'm sorry for what I did to you and your family. And to—" Kevin's voice cracked. "To try to explain, even though I know there's no excuse. I'm listening." Kevin took a shaky breath. "I grew up in a small town, where people mostly looked like me. My parents, they had opinions. They said things, and I absorbed those things without questioning them. When I started driving, I developed shortcuts in my head about which passengers would be easy, which might cause problems. And somewhere along the way, I started making those judgments based on race. I didn't think of it as discrimination. I thought of it as efficiency. But it was discrimination," Thaddeus said quietly. "Yes, sir. It was. And I didn't see it until I lost everything. Until my daughter came home crying because kids at school called me a racist. Until I had to look at myself and realize that's exactly what I am." "Was," Thaddeus corrected. "What you are is a choice you make every day going forward." Kevin looked up, surprised. You think people can change. I think people can choose to change if they're willing to do the hard work. But it is hard work, Mr. Hargrove. It's not just saying sorry. It's examining every assumption, every instinct, every learned behavior. It's being uncomfortable and uncertain. It's accepting that the way you've seen the world is fundamentally flawed. "I'm trying, sir. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm volunteering at a community center, listening to people's stories. I'm trying to teach my kids differently than I was taught." Thaddeus was quiet for a moment, studying him. "Mr. Hargrove, I want you to understand something. I didn't fire you to ruin your life. I fired you because what you did was wrong, and allowing it to go unpunished would have sent a message that discrimination is acceptable in companies I lead. Do you understand the difference?" "Yes, sir. I have a daughter your daughter's age. When she asked me why you wouldn't let us on that shuttle, I had to explain to her that some people judge others by their appearance instead of their character." She cried. She asked if it was her fault. A 9-year-old child thought maybe she'd done something wrong to deserve being left in 95-degree heat. "Do you understand what that does to a child?" Kevin's tears started again. "I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I have a daughter the same age, and if anyone ever made her feel that way, you'd be devastated," Thaddeus finished. "As I was, as my wife was, as my 14-year-old son was when he realized the world wasn't as fair as Wed taught him it would be. Mr. Mitchell, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know that I'm not asking for my job back. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life." Thaddeus stood and walked to the window, looking out over Dallas. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Finally, he said, "Mr. Hargrove, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate your apology, though you're right that it doesn't undo the harm. Here's what I want you to understand. I don't need you to live the rest of your life in shame. I need you to live the rest of your life being better. Be the father your daughter deserves. Be the man you should have been all along. That's how you make this right. Not to me, but to every person who might have been affected by your prejudice." Kevin stood as well, wiping his eyes. "Yes, sir. I will. I promise." Then that's all I needed to hear. They shook hands, a strange and solemn moment of connection between two men whose lives had intersected at a point of crisis. As Kevin left the office, Estelle handed him a folder. "Mr. Mitchell asked me to give you this. It's a list of organizations in the Dallas area that work on racial justice and community building. He thought you might find it helpful in your journey." Kevin took the folder with trembling hands. "Thank you." In the elevator down, he opened the folder. Inside were contact details for nonprofits, support groups, educational programs. A roadmap for someone who wanted to change but didn't know where to start. Kevin drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. When he arrived, his family was in the living room. Diane looked up. "How did it go?" Hez a better man than I am. Than I was. He gave me a chance to apologize, and he told me how to be better." Kaylee ran to him and hugged his waist. "Are you okay, Daddy?" Kevin knelt down and looked into his daughter's eyes. "I made a really bad mistake, Pumpkin, and am going to spend a long time making up for it. But I want you to know something. Every person, no matter what they look like or where they come from, deserves respect and kindness. Do you understand? Like how we should treat everyone the way we want to be treated. Exactly like that. And if you ever see someone being treated badly because of how they look, I want you to speak up. Be brave. Be better than Daddy was." She hugged him tighter. "I will." That night, Kevin applied for a job at a local warehouse, work that had nothing to do with customer service or driving. It was hard labor, lower pay, but they didn't ask about his previous termination. He got hired. It wasn't redemption. It was just a start. 3 months after the incident at DFW Airport, TransGlobal Aviation Holdings held its quarterly all-hands meeting. The conference center was packed with employees from across the company's various divisions, all eager to hear from their new CEO. Thaddeus Mitchell stood at the podium in a perfectly tailored navy suit, looking out over 600 faces. The screen behind him displayed the quarterly results: strong revenue growth, successful integration of recent acquisitions, and impressive customer satisfaction scores. But the most dramatic improvement was in a specific subsidiary. "I want to talk about change," Thaddeus began. 3 months ago, we discovered serious problems in our regional transit group division, specifically at Premier Airport Shuttle services. We discovered a pattern of discrimination, inadequate training, and insufficient oversight. We discovered that customers were being treated differently based on their race, and that complaints were being swept under the rug rather than addressed. The audience listened intently. Most knew the story, or some version of it. Office gossip traveled fast. Some of you may know that this issue became personal for me when my own family experienced discrimination from one of our drivers. But I want to be clear, even if it hadn't happened to me, even if I'd simply discovered these problems through a routine audit, the response would have been the same. And if you came on a haveless, in the right saying 17.7, and I re 17.7, and I want to be clear, and if you came 7, and if you came 7, because discrimination has no place in any company I lead. Thaddeus clicked a remote, and new data appeared on screen. "Harry's what we've done. In 3 months, every driver at Premier Airport Shuttle, all 63 of them, has completed a comprehensive retraining program that includes modules on unconscious bias, customer service excellence, and cultural competency. We've implemented a new complaint system where every single complaint is investigated by an independent third party. We've revised our hiring practices to include more thorough background checks and behavioral interviews. And we've increased driver compensation by 15%, because we believe that when you invest in your people, they invest in your customers. The screen showed before and after statistics. Customer complaints, down 80%. Driver turnover, down 60%. Positive reviews, up 120%. We also conducted a company-wide review of every division to identify and address any similar issues. I'm pleased to report that we've implemented new training and oversight protocols across the entire organization. This isn't just about one shuttle company. This is about establishing a culture where every employee knows that discrimination in any form will not be tolerated. Applause rippled through the audience. But I want to be honest with you about something else. Thaddeus continued, his voice softening slightly. Making these changes wasn't easy. We had to have hard conversations. We had to let go of people who refused to meet our standards. We faced criticism from some who felt we were overreacting, but I firmly believe that when you know better, you have to do better. And now we know better. In the audience, Lorraine Mitchell sat with several other executive spouses. She watched her husband command the room with quiet authority and felt overwhelming pride. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Someone who used his power not for personal gain but for creating fairness. After the meeting, there was a reception in the adjoining ballroom. Employees mingled, celebrating the quarterly results and the positive direction of the company. Thaddeus was shaking hands and accepting congratulations when Estelle approached. "Sir, there's someone here who'd like to speak with you briefly. I know it's not scheduled, but who is it?" "Calvin Montgomery from Presidential Transportation Services. He drove you home that day." "Of course. Where is he?" Estelle led him to a quieter corner where Calvin stood, looking slightly uncomfortable in his dress uniform. "Mr. Montgomery," Thaddeus said warmly, extending his hand. "It's good to see you again, Mr. Mitchell. I hope I'm not intruding. I came to the building to drop off some contracts for our business office, and I heard there was a company event. I wanted to personally thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For what you did with Premier Airport Shuttle. Word gets around in our industry. Every driver in the Dallas metro area knows what happened and what you did about it. You set a standard, sir. You made it clear that discrimination won't be tolerated. That might not seem like a big deal to some people, but to those of us who've faced that kind of treatment, it means everything." Thaddeus was moved. "Calvin, I only did what should have been done all along, maybe, but most people in your position would have quietly settled, moved on, protected the company image. You made it public. You made it matter. My daughter Violet, she's 9 years old like your daughter. When I told her about what you did, she said, 'Maybe the world is getting a little bit better, Daddy. That's because of you.'" They talked for a few more minutes before Calvin had to leave. After he left, Lorraine found Thaddeus. "That looked like a meaningful conversation." "It was. He thanked me for something I should have done regardless. But it reminded me why this matters." "Speaking of which," Lorraine said, "Delilah wants to know if we can invite Mr. Calvin and his daughter Violet over for dinner sometime. Apparently she's been telling everyone at school about the nice driver with the princess car." Thaddeus laughed. "I think that can be arranged." That evening, the Mitchell family returned to their home in Plano. Silas was already talking about an upcoming robotics competition. Delilah was practicing ballet moves in the living room. Lorraine was reviewing medical journals for an upcoming conference. Normal life, or as normal as it could be when your father was a CEO, and your mother was a renowned surgeon. But there was something different now, something that had changed in the 3 months since that incident at the airport. The family had always known that racism existed. They'd all experienced it in various forms throughout their lives. But that day at the airport, when discrimination had been so blatant, so undeniable, it had forced a reckoning. For Thaddeus, it had been a reminder that power without purpose was meaningless. He could run a successful company and make his shareholders rich, but if he didn't use his position to make things better, what was the point? For Lorraine, it had strengthened her resolve to teach their children not just to succeed, but to stand up for what's right even when it's hard. For Silas, it had been a harsh introduction to the reality that the world wasn't always fair, but also a lesson that change was possible when people with power chose to act. And for Delilah, it had been confusing and painful, but her parents' response had taught her that you don't accept injustice, you fight it. 2 weeks later, Thaddeus received an email. It was from Kevin Hargrove. Mr. Mitchell, I wanted you to know that I've been attending counseling and volunteering at the South Dallas Community Center. I'm learning things I should have known years ago. I'm teaching my children what I should have been taught. I can't change what I did, but am trying to be better. Thank you for giving me a chance to apologize, and for showing me how to move forward. Respectfully, Kevin Hargrove. Thaddeus read the email twice, then forwarded it to Jerome Wallace with a note. People can change. Let's make sure our company continues to help them do so. On a Saturday morning a month later, Calvin Montgomery and his daughter Violet came to the Mitchell house for brunch. The two 9-year-olds became instant friends, playing in the backyard while the adults talked over coffee. Calvin mentioned that had been approached by several transportation companies wanting to know how Presidential had maintained such high standards. Your actions created a ripple effect, Mr. Mitchell. Companies that used to tolerate bad behavior are suddenly scrambling to clean up their acts. Good, Thaddeus said simply. As Calvin and Violet were leaving, Delilah hugged her new friend and whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. My daddy says your daddy is a really good person. I think so too, Violet whispered back. My daddy says your daddy is making the world better. Both fathers heard, and both felt the weight of responsibility that came with being role models. That night, as Thaddeus was tucking Delilah into bed, she asked, Daddy, are people still going to be mean because of how we look? He could have lied, could have told her that everything was fixed now, but he respected her too much for that. Sometimes, sweetheart, some people will still make wrong choices, but there are more good people than bad people, and the good people are working hard to make things better. Are you one of the good people? I'm trying to be. Every single day, I'm trying. She thought about that for a moment. That's good enough. She hugged her doll and closed her eyes, secure in the knowledge that her father was fighting for her, for their family, and for everyone who deserved better. Thaddeus stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, watching her breathe softly in sleep. Then he walked downstairs to where Lorraine was reviewing surgery notes. Long day? She asked. Long 3 months. But good ones. You changed things, Thad. Really changed them. We changed things. This whole family. Silas documenting everything. You keeping us grounded. Delilah reminding us why it matters. We did this together. Lorraine set aside her notes and took his hand. So, what's next? Next, we keep going. We keep holding people accountable. We keep setting standards. We keep showing our kids that when you have power, you use it to create justice, not just profit. Sounds exhausting. It is. But it's also exactly what we're supposed to be doing. They sat together in comfortable silence, two people who'd built successful careers and a beautiful family. Who'd faced discrimination but refused to let it defeat them, who'd used a moment of crisis to create lasting change. Somewhere in Dallas, Kevin Hargrove was putting his own children to bed, teaching them lessons he wished he'd learned earlier. Somewhere in the city, Calvin Montgomery was telling his wife about the good people he'd met who gave him hope for the future. And somewhere, on countless roads and in countless shuttles, drivers were treating passengers with respect because they knew that discrimination had consequences. One incident at an airport. One family refused service. One man who chose to act rather than accept. It wasn't enough to fix everything. Racism wouldn't end, because one CEO fired one driver. But it was a start. A statement. A line in the sand that said, "Not here, not anymore, not on my watch." And sometimes, that's how change begins. Not with grand gestures or sweeping legislation, but with one person in power deciding that basic human dignity matters more than convenience or comfort. 3 months after a family was denied an airport shuttle, the driver had cried watching a VIP limousine arrive for them. But that moment of shock and tears wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something better. So here's my question for you. What would you do if you witnessed discrimination like this happening? Would you speak up? Would you intervene? Would you document it like Silas did? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that change is possible when good people refuse to stay silent, then do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. We're all responsible for the world we create together. Every choice matters, every action counts, and every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the color of their skin, where they come from, or what they look like. Thank you for watching this story. Thank you for caring about justice. And thank you for being part of a community that believes we can do better. Until next time, remember, be kind, be fair, and be the change you want to see in the world. This powerful story teaches us that accountability matters. When Thaddeus Mitchell discovered discrimination within his own company, he didn't look away or make excuses. He took immediate action, proving that leadership means standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. The incident reminds us that racism isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's a shuttle driver refusing service, a store clerk following customers, or a landlord suddenly having no vacancies. These small acts of discrimination compound into systemic injustice that damages lives and communities. Kevin Hargrove's story shows that prejudice often hides behind convenient excuses, scheduling conflicts, capacity issues, business decisions. But when we're honest with ourselves, we recognize bias for what it is. His journey also demonstrates that change is possible when people genuinely commit to growth, seek education, and listen to those they've harmed. For the Mitchell family, this experience reinforced the importance of documentation, speaking up, and using privilege and power to protect others. Silas' quick thinking to record evidence proved crucial. Their story teaches that success doesn't insulate anyone from discrimination, but it can provide platforms for creating change. Most importantly, this story reminds us that silence enables injustice. When we witness discrimination and say nothing, we become complicit. Real change requires courage, consistency, and a commitment to holding ourselves and others accountable every single day. What would you have done in Thaddeus Mitchell's position? Would you have pursued accountability as strongly, or would you have quietly accepted an apology and moved on? Drop a comment below sharing your perspective. If you believe that leaders have a responsibility to fight discrimination in their organizations, hit that like button right now. And if you think this story needs to be heard by more people, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with your family, friends, and colleagues. Stories like this matter because they remind us that change is possible when good people refuse to accept injustice. Every view, every share, Every conversation this video sparks contributes to a larger movement toward equality and human dignity. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for being part of a community that believes everyone deserves respect regardless of the color of their skin. May you always have the courage to stand up for what's right, the wisdom to recognize injustice when you see it, and the compassion to treat every person you meet with dignity and kindness. Until next time, stay strong, stay fair, and keep fighting for justice.